Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom Into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
All right, good evening, everybody. How is everyone doing? Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Stars of Cabernet. We have a fantastic audience joining us tonight with some of the great vintners of the Napa Valley. And I want to thank you all for being here. Hey, Lisa. How are you? Lisa Tess, good to see you. Hi, Jessica. Hi, Julie Edwards. Good to see you. Hi, Kelly Cook. Glad you all could be here. Hi, Terrence. How are you, sir?
I'm great. I'm fine. I'm just glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. Greg Gura, how are you, my friend?
Good. How are you, Ian? Thanks for putting this together.
Pleasure, my pleasure. We have a really nice silent auction. Greg, could you paste that in the link real quick?
I will. I'll do it after we are done converting here. But yeah, everything's good. Thank you, Norma, for getting those 2 early bids in. All the wineries for tonight, tomorrow, next weekend have donated great bottles of wine, great experiences. So it's all up there. Go give it a look. It's all starting at 50% off retail. And bidding goes until the 21st, Sunday night at 9 p.m.
Cool. Good job. I just want to share my screen. Hopefully you got an email that looks like this. On the bottom here, you can click that open and get the brochure. You can also click on the bottom, get the tasting mat. And then the silent auction is down here as well. And all that information, my team is going to plug into the chat box right here. Alicia or Alex, if you can give that plug there, I would appreciate it. We've got a really big audience tonight, and Aaron, I'll talk to you later. I'm sorry about that. But we will fix everything. Looks like our audience is getting up to size, and we've got the Napa Valley Vintners on the line. Stacy, are you there? Hi, Stacy. Let me share the spotlight with you and everybody, and you can say hi. Stacy's with the Napa Valley.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Nice to be here. My name is Stacy Emerson. I work for Napa Valley Vintners. We have a great group of our member wineries joining us tonight. Napa Valley Vintners is a membership organization of 550 member wineries dedicated to enhancing, protecting, and promoting the Napa Valley wine industry. And I would like to share with you, since this is the consumer audience, that we have this wonderful website that we just launched about a month ago called napavalley.wine. If anyone is planning a trip up to Napa Valley, I would ask that you check it out if you want to have a trip planner, custom itineraries or ideas of an itinerary to fold into your trip next time you do come up to the Valley. But we are open. We are looking forward to welcoming you all back to Napa. And we're looking forward to highlighting some of these wonderful producers tonight with Ian. And to all of you.
What is that website again? Napa?
Sure, it's napavalley.wine, WINE instead of com. Nice. It's a highly visual website and very user-friendly. We have a trip planner on there. We have an area where you can research all the different member wineries up and down the valley. And also, if you are interested in looking for a particular restaurant in, say, St. Helena or Napa Valley, we do have our Wine List Award winners listed on the website. So it's really a great resource for consumers to come visit and check out what we have to offer.
Wow, it's really, really comprehensive. Look at that. That is gorgeous. That's a lot of work. Well, fantastic. I'll spend some more time on that. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
There's also a couple of, on Learn About Wine, we added a couple of the programs that the Napa Valley offers to help educate yourself about the Napa Valley. And as part of our complimentary classes here. So if you want to learn more about Napa Valley Rocks or Napa Sessions.
Yeah, we have a great program called Napa Valley Rocks. It's geared for anybody interested in learning more about the geology of the valley, about the history of the valley, and about the continuing leadership of our industry in general. We also just launched in 2020, due to COVID, a wonderful masterclass, all online, all complimentary, called Napa Valley Sessions. And that can be reached at napavalley.sessions.com, where we cover a wide range of topics relevant to Napa Valley with knowledgeable moderators who have engaging discussions with a lot of our member wineries. I think since we started the program, we've had about 20 to 25 sessions so far. So everything is recorded. And if you've missed one that you were interested in attending and couldn't actually make it, we have a library of everything that we've done in the past. And then also what we have coming up in the future. So April will be concentrating on sustainability. So looking forward to that. We also have each of the sessions geared toward either a professional audience or more towards the enthusiast audience, and have different engaging moderators based on the audience as well. So invite you to join us for that. And as I mentioned, Napa Valley Rocks is this online certification. You get a certificate afterwards. And then Napa Valley Sessions is just a complimentary masterclass should you want to learn more about the Valley and our producers.
Very, very good. Well, before we get rocking tonight, and I just a couple of things, we're going to keep a pretty big pace tonight because we're going to taste wine with 7 different wineries. So we're going to be moving along pretty quickly. We ask the producers to help us stay on time. We also want to, earlier today, Anthony Diaz-Blue was on our professional Zoom with all the wine buyers and stuff, and said some pretty nice things. I thought I would start the evening off by letting everyone know that a very famous individual named Stephen Spurrier passed away this week. He was really instrumental in bringing the Napa Valley to the forefront, and really organized the competition of 1976. And where the Napa Valley finished first place with not only the white wine, but the red wine as well. And the movie Bottle Rock was Bottle Shock was a kind of a play on that event. But he passed away this week, and he was renowned for being just an absolute gentleman and a consummate professional, and really did a lot of things to move the needle. So we wanted to wish he and his family and all of his friends sincere, I guess, support. So a great man, though, and it's always nice to recognize those people. So with that, if we don't mind, Stacey, we're going to start to rock this event, and we're going to bring out our first winemaker tonight from Chappellet Vineyards. It's going to be Mr. Philip Titus. I'm really excited to talk to Philip. Let's see if I can get
Hi there. Glad to be here, and thanks for having Chappellet as part of your program tonight.
Well, real honor to have you, sir. And I'm very thrilled to be able to taste the wine with you. You've been in the business of making wine for a long time, right, Philip?
Yeah, it's basically the only business I've ever been in, other than the business of being a kid and a college student. And then I went off to UC Davis at 18 years old to study wine. I have no idea really why, but I grew up on a vineyard in St. Helena, so it seemed like a natural thing to do. And I guess at least then I had a passing interest in wine, but it really developed over the years at Davis, and especially since, I moved right back to Napa Valley after graduating, and I've been at Chappellet basically ever since when I graduated in 1981. Gone for some of the time, but there most of the time.
Well, that's spectacular. Well, let's get right into your show, if you don't mind. And once again, we want to thank the Napa Valley Vintners for sponsoring this evening. And we are on our way. This will be our order tonight. We'll start with Chappellet. We'll go to Joseph Phelps. And those of you that are tasting at home and just got our little sample vials, which I'll be tasting with. And Philip, did you get your tasting kit?
I did, and since it's so funny because I opened it up, and of course they're just labeled with numbers, and so I opened the first one. I thought, gosh, that smells familiar. So I thought this must be Chappellet, but I didn't know for sure.
All right.
So yeah, I've got them.
Good. Well, we invite you to taste with all the vintners if you got time, or just to give them a taste so you can see how all the Napa Valley is being represented tonight. We'll go from Chappellet to Phelps to Canard to AXR, Oakville, Judd's Hill, and Redmond. And here we go. Our first winery, Chappellet, and Philip Titus, you are in charge, sir.
Okay, and now, there you go. There's the slide. So I think everybody can go ahead and start the tasting. And so that is, that's a view from, basically from the Molly Chappellet's house, looking down across the vineyard and past the winery. It's a little hard to see. We'll see it better in some of the other slides, but way back in 1967, the Chappellets moved to Napa Valley with the dream of making world-class Cabernet Sauvignon. Now that dream does not seem, so unusual, but at the time, the Chappellets were the kind of the first wave of vintners or people coming to the Napa Valley to be vintners. They, without a lot of experience behind them, but they had a keen sense of the quality from Napa Valley and the desire to make great wine. And so they came. They did consult with Andrei Chelyshev, who at the time was very active and kind of the father of modern winemaking at the time in Napa Valley, and he directed Don Chappellet to look for hillside vineyards, which were kind of unusual at the time. Those this is the vineyard that they bought. It's on Pritchard Hill. Pritchard Hill, now famous, but back then I think people actually tried to talk Don out of buying the vineyard because they said it was going to be impossible to farm, no water, lots of rocks, just adversity. But Don fell in love with it, and Molly fell in love with it, and the rest is history. And so it's really a great place to grow Cabernet. It's kind of meant to, this property is just perfection when it comes to a site for Cabernet. Hillside vineyard, lots of rocks, thin soil. The wines are very structured, dark colored, very aromatic. They age forever and develop great complexity with time, and have really proven that over the years with some of our wines from the late 60s and early 70s still showing. I mean, they're not the same, but they're showing really well. They're still quite amazing wines and a treat to have. So that's you can see we have two wineries, the original Pyramid that's off to the left, and then the new, what we call the Shea, built in 2012. So we have both the state-of-the-art winery from 1968 and then the state-of-the-art winery from 2012, and we still make them work together. About 100 acres of vines, all certified organic, and it's quite a green operation. We recycle all our water, we cover crop, we compost. You can see the solar array on the top of the building. So we're, the Chappellets have just been great stewards of the land, and kind of ahead of their time in the way they went about preserving the natural setting of the property.
Never seen this this photo before the slideshow. It's quite dramatic. How many acres is that?
Well, the whole property is about 700 acres. And then what you're looking at there is about that's probably 80 acres of vines right there. And then we have another, if you could see off to the right, there's a canyon that you go through and you go up to another piece of property. It's contiguous to this, but it's between Colgan and Continuum. We have another vineyard there that is more south facing, whereas this is more of a northwest face, and the other one is more of a southwest facing slope. And the soils change dramatically just in that little passage through this canyon.
Amazing.
Yeah, it really is. That's a gorgeous picture.
And there's your two shays.
Yeah, so the pyramid is the weird thing is that when I was a kid and living in St. Helena, I remember when this was being built because there was a picture of it in the St. Helena Star, and they called it the Cathedral of Wine, and it was so unusual and so avant-garde for its time. That it really, and it's still very modern, and it still looks like a cathedral inside this three-sided pyramid that the Chappellets, along with some artist friends, came up with this design. And it's very timeless, and we've really over time rebuilt almost the entire winery from the floor to the ceiling. We've done a lot of work to restore it, and in many ways it's in better shape now, or almost better than when it was built originally. There's the cathedral. It's quite gorgeous, and I've been lucky enough to go to Chappellet to work every day for the last 35 years. The 1969 Chappellet, there's a little slide there, but that is quite a famous wine. It was their first vintage. So how about that for a great start? And as the other winemakers, Philip Tanya made this wine, and there's Joe Cafaro, Tony Soder, Kathy Corison, and then me, and then I'm the one that never left. But we've all lived under the shadow of this wine, one of the greatest wines ever made from Napa Valley, and we've always kind of tried to live up to it. And I think we have in many ways, but this wine kind of stands alone in its greatness, and it's still a fabulous wine. It defies gravity, and it's just absolutely delicious. And this wine we're drinking and tasting tonight is very much a descendant of that wine. I always think it's got part of the DNA of that wine in this wine.
So can we taste it with you, Philip?
Yeah, absolutely.
This wine in the glass is just opaque. I mean, the color is sensational.
Yeah, and that is kind of a trademark of our vineyards, and just the soils and the climate that we have there. We develop a lot of color. We also develop wines with a lot of tannin as well, and so that's kind of a big job for us, is kind of keeping that under control. We had a number of vintages from the 70s where people said, oh well, they need 20 years, and then they'd wait 20 years, and then they think, well, it needs another 20 years. So modern winemaking, we have many more tools to work with. And so this wine, it's a blend of the Cabernet on our site, and it's also it's blended with Petit Verdot and Malbec, which are currently the blenders that we like to use. If we go back in time, there was a lot more Merlot, and then Cabernet Franc, and at this stage, we've really transitioned into Petit Verdot and Malbec as our favorite blenders, because they just add so much kind of velvety texture and color, and they kind of fill in all the cracks that that Cabernet has as this big structured wine. These blenders come in and just kind of round the wine out. So it's fairly common blend for us, in the 5 to 10% Petit Verdot and maybe 5% Malbec.
Well, that nose is stunning. It kind of pulls you right into the glass. And this is all Pritchard Hill Estate.
This we have a wine from the Pritchard Hill called. We just call it Pritchard Hill, and that is a name that is trademarked by the Chappellets, and that is from the estate. This wine comes from the other vineyards that don't go into the Pritchard Hill from the estate, and then it also is made from grapes from some of our neighbors. Some of our neighbors are Stagecoach, Ed Cora, Altimeter, Circle R, and Broken Rock, and they're all along the eastern ridge, starting at from Chappellet and going south. So this is a blend of Chappellet and some of our neighbors that have a lot in common with our own vineyard.
Super cool. And what kind of notes do you pick up in the nose of this wine?
Well, I tend to, see this kind of dark fruited wine, kind of nice, sort of chocolatey character that comes from both the fruit and the oak. We usually have about 60% new French oak in this wine, so we get a nice toasted character from the oak. I think there's this kind of nice kind of sage and cedar, little graphite character. It's a very young wine. I think it's just, it's a 2018. So it's still in its youth and developing. And I think it's developed even in the last 6 months. As I taste the wine, I sense it kind of settling down and losing some of this youthful grapey character and some more of the complexity of the varieties and the site starting to come.
Wow, really amazingly complex and detailed. And this wine sells for around $70. And that's a great value.
Yeah, it's been Chappellet has always been pretty fair with their prices, and I really think it's great. We do make a fair amount of this wine, but by most standards, it's still a very small production. And the Pritchard Hill wine that we make from the estate is like 3 or 4 times the price of this wine, but it's so great. This wine is just such an ambassador for us to the rest of the country and the world, to be able to taste our wines and the quality of what we produce at a price that people can still buy it at a restaurant, and it's still a nice affordable wine that is kind of, I think, sort of an iconic wine for Napa Valley, especially for hillside wines.
Well, I just want to toast you and everybody. Thank you for joining our Stars of Napa.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Titus. Wonderful pleasure to meet you on the Zoom. I've never met you in person, but I've tasted your wines many times, and
all right,
super thrilling to be able to taste with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next winery that will be visiting with is Joseph Phelps.
Hi there.
And we have the lovely Ashley Hepworth on our Zoom tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a killer lineup, and I'm completely honored to be here tonight.
It's great to hand the baton between Mr. Titus and yourself, and to be that person. So I thank you both, and I hope everyone's ready to move into wine number 2. And drink up, everybody. We're gonna have a good time tonight. Ashley, how long have you been at Joseph Phelps?
Okay, so I'm celebrating my 23rd vintage at Joseph Phelps. I came as a harvest intern in 1999, and I loved it so much I stayed. At the time, the sort of director of production offered me a full-time job in the cellar, and I stayed. And in 2008, I was promoted to winemaker.
Nice.
And I would say I'm just honored to work for a great family business, and we have a fantastic team that has been created over the years, and it's just so great to be able to sort of carry on Joe's legacy. That's a real honor.
Well, it's great to have you here, and there have been some really amazing people that have walked through this door. I just want to start by saying, standing on the porch at Joseph Phelps is probably the reason why I'm working in the wine industry. I was standing just right there or so back in 1991. And I just took a look at that hillside, and I felt the grandeur of it all. And I said, why am I not doing more of this? So
I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. It is. The view from the sort of the patio is a different view than that amazing picture from Chappellet, which reminds me I need to go there more often. But it's breathtaking as well. And it does kind of, you have to pinch yourself every day. So the building that we're looking at is really what Joe built. So he was a contractor by trade, but a really avid wine enthusiast. And in the early 70s, he became acquainted with the Napa Valley and wine industry figures. And his contracting company was getting quite big. And one project led to the other, and he ended up building Souverain and Rutherford Hill. And he ended up coming across our home ranch in St. Helena, which is about 670 acres, and it used to be a cattle ranch. And in 1973, he bought that property and, sort of just started his legacy then. I think over the years, he's become, he was a very recognized leader in the industry, one that was known for his spirit of innovation and his quest for excellence. He really understood the link between vineyards and great wine. And early on, he really over nearly 5 decades, has purchased some really great vineyards in the Napa Valley. So today we have 9 estate vineyards throughout the valley in multiple AVAs. 7 of those vineyards are what we source for the particular wine that we're tasting this evening. You can see, Joe, he started the winery with really, not knowing exactly what he wanted to plant, but he knew he really liked Rhone wines, and loved Bordeaux wines. And sort of the fashion at that point was white wine. So he grew some Gewürztraminer, Johannesburg Riesling early on, all of which we've replanted at this point. The vineyard sources for our Napa Cabernet go all the way from our northernmost vineyard, which is in St. Helena at our home ranch, to our Rutherford vineyard our vineyard in Rutherford. We have 2 vineyards in Stag's Leap, 2 vineyards in Oak Knoll that we pull for this blend, and we have a vineyard in South Napa, and that's in the Napa AVA. We've been making the wine that we're tasting since 1973, and today we're tasting the 18 Napa Cab. So let's taste a little bit here.
Before I leave this picture of Mr. Phelps, I think the head story, you left the head story off of his moniker, because this is Joe Phelps of Hansel Phelps Construction. This guy built the Pentagon. And
he did. They did the rebuild of the Pentagon after 9/11. So I'll talk a little bit about his father, Hansel Phelps, started the company in the 50s. And when Joe graduated from college with a construction management degree, he of course went right into the business and really took it to a whole different level and made it really a nationwide company, which it still is today, which is pretty incredible. Yeah. And they did win the bid for redoing the Pentagon. And they've built our winery. They built our winery over in Freestone, where we make our Pinot Noir and our Chardonnay wines. And they still do a lot of construction all over the Bay Area.
When he wanted a sandwich, he built the Oakville grocery so he could have a sandwich.
Pretty cool. Love it. True.
This guy's, and so he also got some credit, I think, for being like the first person to ever put Syrah on the label and making the first Syrah. It's like a series of firsts that are pretty unattainable.
I love it. That's true. Joe was a fine lover of Rhone wines, and our first Syrah was from 1974, and we're still making Syrah today, a wine that I love to make. We make a small amount, but Joe loved Rhone wines. I think he was maybe a little before his time with a whole brand of Rhone wines that we called Vin de Mistral that we don't really make any longer, but beautiful wines nevertheless.
Yeah, I probably know more about the Joe Phelps brand than I do a lot of other brands, just because of that romantic relationship that I had with, finding that this winery is one of the first places I visited, and then I've been back many times, and I sold the wine for about 10 years. So I had really a lot of interaction with Craig Williams and KK and, many of the folks that have come through Phelps, which are some of the best in the business. So
it's true. It's true. I feel honored to have had the opportunity to work with so many people in the history of Phelps. And of course, KK's still there. And my gosh, I think she celebrated her 25-year anniversary last year. She's our one of our national sales managers.
Well, the general manager back when I met him was Tom Shelton.
Yep.
He would fly down in his plane to do my wine dinners with me in Los Angeles. And so just incredible support and really just the best possible people. So
absolutely.
A lot of good times. So I'll let you continue. I keep sneaking stuff in.
No, I love it. I love it. I love the history. And I love when people are passionate about the history, because it goes to show sort of the legacy that he's created. And true, how many people have come through the doors and sort of left and made such a great name for themselves. It's pretty cool. So I'll give you a little history on the 2018 vintage, which I really loved. Of course, it came after 17, so I think we were all ready for anything. But 18 was interesting because it was very cool. It was a very cool and a very dry season. And actually, when you look at the degree days from all of our ranches, it's almost one of the coolest we have on record. But which is interesting. And we had such a long growing season. So we were able to do like really extended hang time to get the phenological ripeness that we wanted. But there's not a jammy characteristic. We had bud break later than previous years. Bloom, veraison, and harvest were all later as well. I think we stopped picking in 2018 on October 31st, which is pretty late for us in the past few years where we've had these really warm vintages. 18, I think, was sort of coined by not having highs or lows throughout the growing season. It was cooler overall, that is true, but I think it allowed us to have really great ripening for a long time. So I love the characteristics of this wine, especially just the deep color that it has.
It's so hedonistic at this moment too. It's just got this wonderful drink me now presence to it.
This is always a blend, although it's mostly Cabernet Sauvignon. This particular vintage has a splash of Cab Franc and Malbec. Occasionally it has some Petit Verdot as well. The vineyards, as I already mentioned, we're sourcing from the seven of our 9 estate vineyards. And really, we're getting such different characteristics from each of those. And they're the same vineyards that we're sourcing fruit for our Insignia program. And each vineyard really offers something different to the mix. It's incredible sort of the differences. So in our vineyard in St. Helena, I feel like there's really dark, rich fruit with good structure. Rutherford has this classic sort of bold tannin, polished tannin profile. Our Oak Knoll district vineyards tend to be a little bit more fruity and have really luscious mouthfeel. And our vineyards in Stag's Leap are extremely elegant. They're very elegant. They're more floral in aromatics. And our vineyard in South Napa, even in a vintage like 2018, that was a super long growing season, we always get very, very dark color from that particular vineyard because it's usually a vineyard that we pick the last. And it's cooler down there. We get less rainfall, so we can definitely extend the hang time. That was the other thing about 18. Although it was cool, we were able to do more hang time. We had no threat of rain. So it was like, we didn't have to pick anytime soon, which was great. I typically always have in mind that I want to kind of try to pick before November 1st. But I think in 18, we could have gone a little bit further, honestly. This wine it's kind of classic. It's aged in about 40% new oak, and the balance is 2 to 3 year old barrels. And I think the energy of this wine is really beautiful. It's got length, finesse. I love the floral characteristics, sort of a cedar, graphite characteristic, blackberry cassis. And I feel like the tannin structure is present, but it's not. There's a little bit of a silky characteristic there.
There's all the numbers.
Oh yeah, lots of numbers there for you guys.
Dry chart out. Cedar pencil shavings, followed by ripe blackberries, cassis, and red currant jam. Beautiful, beautiful wine. The wine sells roughly around $80 a bottle. We have some pretty competitive prices in and around Los Angeles as well. And this is like a go-to hit for a lot of my friends and family. And Ashley, I had no idea you've been there for 22 years. That's really impressive, especially since you look like you're about 25.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be on here, and great to meet you, Ian.
Pleasure to meet you too. Please say hi to the entire Phelps team, and thank you for being with us tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. How's everybody doing?
Outstanding.
Feeling no pain, I hope. I'd love to hear some comments, questions for any of the producers. You got Mr. Titus and Ms. Hepworth still with us. That won't necessarily always be the case. These people have other things to attend to. So but you guys are all welcome to stay with us as long as you can or will. And I hope you'll taste with us. And if you have any questions for any of these wineries too, winemakers, please do.
I have a question, Ian.
Yeah.
And this is specifically for Ashley. Ashley, I know you have a small splash of Malbec and Cab Franc. So when does that actual mix with the Cab? At what point do you start blending? I'm always curious about that. Whether you let the Cab develop, the Cab Franc develop amongst itself, or the Malbec. Up to what point do you start blending?
That's a great question. So there are some times that we can pick the same varietals, two different varietals like Malbec and Cabernet, or Cabernet Franc and Petit Verdot, from the same vineyard or different vineyards at the same time, and I might co-ferment them then. That just depends on the vintage, of course. Otherwise, we typically blend in the first quarter of the year following harvest, so kind of right around now. And we blend early, which we think helps to get the wine a little bit more homogenized before bottling, especially because we're aging for, around 18 months, especially for this blend.
Philip, do you do the same thing with your wines? You blend early?
Yeah, we blend, on a normal year, we would be really getting busy now. And it's for the same reasons that when there's a whole thing that happens before blending, and that's kind of sorting through all the wines. And it's such a great time of the year is when we start blind tasting each lot and kind of trying to decide, we make so many different lots of Cabernet and the blenders that, coming up with the decisions as to, what's going to go into the Pritchard Hill, what's going to go in the Signature. We also have a single vineyard, Hideaway Vineyard, how everything's going to sort out. And that's all done on the merits of the wine. I must say, it's probably the most fun you could ever have, in winemaking, because it's such an exploration of the vintage. And then once we decide kind of what's going where, then the blending starts, and it takes a long time. It takes longer than you'd think to put all these different wines together. It's real job security, and we call it an indoor sport. And we go at it every day.
Fantastic. Terry Kamali, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. So my question is to Ashley. So Ashley, it's interesting because we have a 02 and an 03 of your insignia, and the drinking window on the 03 was last year. And then the O2 says 2024. So can you comment on that? And should we drink the O3 now? What should we do?
No, I think I'm not totally sure where those numbers are coming from, but I think both of those wines are excellent and can completely age for longer.
Okay.
Recently, I had a 2002 and it was still very young, very fresh. I think both of those wines could age for another 10, 15 years, and they might surprise us. It might be more.
Yeah.
So absolutely, I think that those wines can age for longer.
Yeah, thank you. We had the 01 maybe 2 years ago, and it was still super. It could have probably aged a little bit longer too, is what we thought. But we were kind of getting worried that the window was going to be closing, so we drank it.
No, I think you're safe to let those age.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ashley, I have a question for you.
I love
Good to see you again. Unfortunately, I was born in 1973, which is probably the most miserable vintage of the wine history world outside of Napa. And I had the pleasure of having a 73 Phelps. Do you agree that later in life, these wines, because I really enjoyed it, these wines have a tendency to change their aging pattern to be much slower than at the beginning of their life? And when I tasted some of the old guys like 73 Phelps, your aging pattern is much more stable. And so when you get to as old as me, and you can see pretty old, these kind of patterns and this ageability kind of slow down. What is your experience with it?
That's a great question. I definitely think, I haven't personally done a lot of research on this, but I definitely think that I feel like there's a window of sort of explosion in the bottle where there's oxygen ingress from the cork. And I think that there's definitely, the wine gets a little strange and then it evens out and then it sort of ages, colors falling out. And then I think at that point you're losing a little bit of fruit and a little color, but it depends so much on, I think, what the wine had at the beginning. Mm-hmm. So some of my favorite wines at Phelps are the 74s and the 73s. And I think back, what did Wilter do? Like, they were probably turning and burning tanks. They, it's just interesting. So I think as long as the wine had sort of, I'm going to call it like the gras at the beginning, I think it's going to age well. But what happens in the bottle, after sort of that initial aging period is, I think it's kind of like we're letting that to the gods.
To the spirits. Do you agree with that, Mr. Titus?
No, aging, the one thing that I've learned over time is it's not the big tannic wines that age really well. And I can speak to Chappellet better than I can speak to almost anything. But the one thing I noticed when I first started at Chappellet in the 80s is that we could still taste the 69 and the 70 occasionally, and they were not big tannic wines. They were beautiful, elegant, moderate tannin, high color wines, and you just wanted to drink them. Where the big tannic vintages were a little, wow, you really want to drink them, but they're not ready. And it's been interesting to me to see these perfectly balanced, elegant wines outlive some of these tannic wines. And so it seems to me it's kind of the way Ashley was talking about. If it has those right ingredients and they're in the right proportion, it's almost like the wine. It just continues on this perfect trajectory, and it doesn't age too quickly. It doesn't have things it needs to resolve because they're already resolved because they started out with such a perfect balance. So that has been a guide for me to not really think in terms of making tannic wines. It's making these fully loaded but elegant and balanced wines.
Tremendous.
I have a question. A couple of comments. I've enjoyed all the winemakers' wines here, but I've enjoyed Chappellet and Signature, because that's a reasonable go-to wine. Over the years, I've found that the Signature needs about 4 to 5 years before I found it to be really getting special. This Signature 18 is already in a good place. And I want to make just one other comment, and you can comment back. I had the pleasure of having a 2009 Chappellet Pritchard Hill a couple of weeks ago, and it was memorable and so special that it ranked up in the top 10 of all the great wines I've drank.
That's a nice compliment.
Yeah, I must say, I would agree with not being self-serving. That wine is at a point now where it's quite hedonistic, and it's doing that sort of breaking down some of the youthfulness and developing. It's in that stage now where the complexity is just coming out in the bottle bouquet, and these deeper spicy flavors coming out. And I'm so glad that I put away quite a bit of every Chappellet wine. I probably got one of the best collections of Chappellet, but I'm glad you did as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it's wonderful as a winemaker to be able to see these babies kind of mature into beautiful adults.
Yeah.
We will move into wine number 3 with Canard. And we welcome Adam Fox to our screen. Hello, Adam. How are you?
How are you, Ian? Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thank you for joining us. It's always great to be amongst giants in the business, and I'm super thrilled to show off your wine to this audience. How many people have tried Canard before? Because I think the number of hands are going to change after you try this beautiful wine.
Probably not a whole lot. One, from the standpoint, our total production is under 4,000 cases. And that's because we don't source any grapes. We grow everything. And we're 26 acres on the valley floor between St. Helena and Calistoga. We're actually in Calistoga AVA. And we dry farm. So no irrigation is used in our farming practice, and it does force us to really drop a lot of fruit and to concentrate the energy of the vine and its resources, whether it's water or nutrients, into just a handful of clusters in order to make very focused terroir-driven wines. So our distribution to Southern California recently just started after, and I grew up there. I'm from LA, and it's been too long that we finally were able to send an allocation down there to a new distributor. So you guys will be able to get these wines a little bit in the market. But as you can see, the 26 acres right on the Silverado Trail as you go into Calistoga is really a study in geology. We have about 5 different soil types on the property. And, we're able to create unique wines because we have all these different soil types on one 26 acre parcel. So, our Merlot does great where it is, and it was planted there because it has more clay, and Merlot loves clay, and that's kind of like in Bordeaux where the right bank has got more clay and the left bank more gravelly, sandy soil, loam. So but what's also kind of cool about the property is it's one of the historic vineyards of Napa Valley. It's one of the oldest Zinfandel vineyards in the valley, with our youngest vines being 100 years old and our oldest, over 135. And Ashley, a shout out to you and Joseph Phelps, because Joe and Robert Mondavi were both a big part of why we're still making Zin today. Because in 1983, when my business partner bought the vineyard, this vineyard manager told him he's got to rip out all this Zin. This is Napa Valley and Cabernet is king, as we all know. But it was 2 phone calls from Joe and from Bob Mondavi saying, listen, you can't pull this out. This is history of the valley. And so we appreciate that. And my grandfather actually was one of the contractors that worked with Joe in Denver. My family's originally from Colorado, so neat that it all kind of comes around full circle. So the property is, as I mentioned, it's an old historic vineyard. It was originally built, the main house on the property in 1859 by one of the founding fathers of Napa Valley, a guy named Reason P. Tucker. And Tucker came out here in search of gold for the gold rush and didn't have much success. So he ended up coming up to the valley and planting wheat. But then he heard about, the Donner Party being trapped up in the mountains, and he was in the first group going up there to find the survivors, and he actually did, and led them into Napa Valley, where the descendants today are still in the valley. And because of this, he got a land grant from the Spanish General of California, General Vallejo, of the north end of the valley, and ended up losing most of it in a dispute with the U.S. government, but kept this 26-acre parcel and built this little farmhouse here. So this is the main residence at the estate. That's our wine cellar. What's cool about Canard is we've been around since 1984, first vintage, but we do things pretty old school, pretty bit old Napa Valley. There's so much in the valley has changed over the years, and there's been a lot of big players come in, a lot of corporations have bought up wineries, and we try to keep it as hands-on and as Rich is 75 years old and he still likes to get out there on the tractor and till in that cover crop. So this is just kind of an idea of the spectrum of experiences you can have in Napa Valley, from the big event centers to the smaller family vineyards. So these are our babies. These are the infants on the property. They're only 100 years old, and then up along the Silverado Trail, they're 135, as I mentioned. But what's really cool is they're dry farmed, and dry farming is something that not a lot of people do in Napa anymore, and we just kind of feel, because our winemaker trained in Bordeaux and learned to make wine there, that and they practice this dry farming. You basically get what Mother Nature gives you, but what it does is it forces your vines to go find their own water. So they're digging down deep, they're pulling up more terroir, they're pulling up a lot more of the this particular soil, and you have a real sense of place, you have a real sense of identity with these single vineyard wines. Not sourcing from multiple vineyards and blending it gives you a consistent profile year after year. And I think that's one of the unique things about the property. So tonight we're tasting, I know you guys were going to be drinking a lot of Cab tonight, so I wanted to throw in the parent to Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc. So if you look at these 3 bottles, this is part of our proprietary blend collection. And when you put the 3 labels together, it actually makes one larger label that's spread across the 3 bottles. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to show the relationship. They all share the same 3 grapes, Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, but each one leads with one grape. So much so that you could actually call it a Cab Sauv or Cab Franc or a Merlot on the bottle, because it's always in that high 80 to low 90% of the dominant grape. But Cabernet by itself can be very angular, and it needs that little touch of Merlot to fatten up the mid palate and soften the edges. And, you know, Merlot, on the other hand, can be a little bit flabby and needs that structure that you get from Cabernet. So blending is really, I think, one of the best ways to make more complex, more perfect wines by having each varietal lend its hand. You know, you have the kind of the lead actor and then the supporting cast on each one. So Throwback is our, if you could go back one, Ian, on the left there.
We are up against time limits, so I do need to push
Okay.
a little bit, but I'll go back for a second, but just be cognizant that we're up against
Yeah,
time.
sure. Throwback is our more left bank Bordeaux style, so it favors Cab. And then right bank is the Rescuer, and that's more of our homage to the right bank. Did I say the left bank on Throwback? Yeah. And then bridging the two is Adam's blend, and that's 91% Cabernet Franc. So just a small, about 8 barrels, sometimes 9. I think in this case it was 9 barrels of Adam's blend. So we're showcasing this beautiful Cabernet Franc in Calistoga. So we're not getting the pyrazine, we're not getting that traditional, you know, green bell pepper flavor profile that you get from a lot of Cab Franc that doesn't quite get as ripe. You know, to me, this is just has great floral qualities, picks up rose petals and violets, but it has medium weight to it. So it really is incredibly food friendly. And just one of my favorite varietals, which is probably why I have my name on it.
Well, it's showing beautifully, and it's got that really detailed graphite in the nose and some really punctuated sweet tannins. A really enjoyable Cab Franc. I know a lot of people, including my wife, love Cabernet Franc, so it's really fun to have that experience here. Thank you for bringing it to us. And I know you've got one more story here.
Yeah, I just wanted to this is a shameless plug for a new rosé, and I'd only do so because part of the proceeds are going to the Napa Valley Disaster Relief Fund. So 2020 was a tough year for everybody, obviously, but particularly tough for some people in Napa as the glass fire and the other complex fire really wreaked havoc. So we lost our winery in 2020 and all the 2020 vintage that was in tank at the time, which was everything. So I had my winemaker run down to Paso Robles and pick up a little Grenache so that we could press on and have something for the summer. You know, we have plenty of wines in our library, so I wasn't worried about the reds. But since we don't grow any white grapes, I wanted to make this Cuvée Descend, which is, you know, a phoenix rising, but in our case it's a duck on the label, and it's really about the fortitude and the resolve of the farmers and the winemakers in Napa Valley and other parts of California that have faced these wildfires. So I hope you guys support this.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation. And we hope everybody enjoys the Cabernet Franc. Mr. Holfinger, you ready to rock and roll?
I'm as ready as I can be at my old age, Mr. Ian.
Fantastic. Great to have you here. We're at wine number 4, and we are going to let Mr. Jean Holfinger talk about AXR. I want to thank you, Jean, for being here tonight.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys. It's really hard to follow and to be before such great, smart, intelligent, good-looking people. I only have 2 brain cells, and I'm really just nothing because I don't have the legacy. I don't have the intelligence. I for sure don't have the winemaking talent. to be able to be in the same conversation. So what can I tell you? That my nickname is failure because I started my life in law school and wealth management instead of winemaking. I can tell you that I was born in a really boring neutral country called Switzerland. I can tell you that after being around the world and traveling in South Africa, Italy, Lynch-Bosch, Carbonieux, etc., and completing all the degrees, I end up in this beautiful place called heaven, called Napa. And in 2001, I became the winemaker up at Newton, talking about a sad story. Newton, who I consult for today, unfortunately has burned down during 2020 and lost 67 acres out of 70. And of course, all the wineries and all the buildings are gone now. But that was the first love. And I left Newton after a couple of years to start Alpha Omega, that I ran and made wine for 15 years until 2018 vintage, when I decided to focus strictly on on a little bit of my consulting career, but that's also where I found a couple of friends, Kelly being one of them, who's a partner of Alpha Omega as well as I am, and we decided to start a new brand a few years ago. 2013 is the first vintage, so I don't have the legacy of Ashley or Philip or Ashley Adam for that matter at all. It's a fairly new project, but the cool thing about that project is we have an amazing no asshole policy, excuse my French. We decided to surround ourselves with really, really nice people that love and dig wine and embrace what wine represents: human interaction, capacity to communicate. And I think there's a key time factor into wine. And that is that when you drink a bottle of wine, usually you focus on the wine itself and the people surrounding you, not on running out the door, answering 50,000 emails, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that that's really the social role that wine has today to help society go through that ginormous exponential advance of technology. And wine has become, for me, but obviously for people like Philip and the Chappellets or the Phelps or obviously Canard, of course, as well, it becomes part of your DNA. But we, ladies and gentlemen, are sitting in something that is absolutely amazing called Napa Valley. I make wine in Italy, Spain, Switzerland, France, Washington, Oregon today, pretty much everywhere. But never or rarely do I see a diversity of soil like we have in Napa. We have about 120 soil formation and a consistency of climate. And that brings us winemakers the ability to really be able to focus on getting and improving the wine, making the wine better. Think about this. Philip and Ashley and I were talking about ageability in wine. I think Napa, or some producer in Napa, because you never want to globalize, Chappellet Wines, one of the greatest compliment I can give, Chappellet and great wineries, it's consistency of high quality, independent of the year. They still express the year, but they have, independent of what nature can throw that, they always go and make a great balanced wine. And I think that's something that is absolutely magnificent. But somewhere along the way, us US customers, US drinkers, the US market, because we don't have that much history, we sometimes follow trends. So we go in a trend and then the pendulum swings back and it always kind of comes in the middle. And Napa had a trend for a very fairly long time of especially on Cabernet, of making wine that had a lot of residual sugar sometimes, that were heavy, that were pretty big. And people, I think, forgot what wine, and the 73 we're talking about, the 69 Chappellet that we're talking about, these wine had a backbone of acidity and a skeleton of tannins. And ultimately, if you want a wine to age, I'm 6'6", ladies and gentlemen. I'm about 255 pounds. If I'm lying, if I'm honest to you, more 262. But if I don't have a spine and a fairly strong skeleton, I'm going to fall apart like a blob. And the ageability of wine is exactly in this. So Philip was saying, you need to have things in balance for wine to age. He is absolutely right. I'm not going to contradict him. He's a legend. But he's absolutely right. This is something that wine is all about. Balance. You bring the acidity because ultimately acidity is the hook that brings people back to wine. The best bottle of wine, ladies and gentlemen, is the empty one. You can say it's the most expensive. You can say it's the best rating. No, it's the empty one because it's the one that in a party, everybody went back to drink. And wine is judged by only one person, the person drinking them, nobody else. So I understand Philip had amazing ratings. Ashley, of course, Jen, everybody on this had really, really good ratings with press and stuff like that. Sure, but ultimately it's just one X-ray of a wine on a particular day. And the same bottle of wine drank with your worst enemy or your lover is going to taste dramatically different. Therefore, it is completely influenced by how you feel, but how is your emotional response to wine. And I think that's why I fell in love. And that's why in 2013, when Telly and others and Don and Mark asked me to start AXR, I decided to jump in and say, okay, especially if you guys understand what wine, let's have fun. And we purchased 3 years ago a property in St. Helena that was an 1876 winery called the Ghost Winery because they were producing wine pre-Prohibition and after, but also because it's haunted. Actually, I received an email while you guys were talking of our GM kind of putting a video of the security camera and a fridge opening all by itself. We know a fridge can open all by itself, we agree. But we have so many events where the staff kind of closes all the door and comes back and everything's open in the morning. We have Bulgarian music starting to play at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, they're really, really strange things. So Ian, why don't you throw the video so they can see through their eyes what I'm trying to express poorly with my words.
No problem. It's a beautiful video, Jean.
Thank you. It is indeed a dramatic finish because we decided to put music on that video because the owners actually understood that, I talk too much and so people would enjoy a little break. So that's why we put music on top of all these images. But I really we're tasting tonight 2015 Cab and 2015, the biggest enemy and anybody, of course, Jen and Adam and Philip, and interrupt me at any given point because you have, far more experience than me. I think the worst enemy of Napa is really heat. There's not many other big issues. Heat, and you can argue today fires, obviously, but at least we can really do things to control fires, for fire prevention, control burns, et cetera. The valley as a whole in the community obviously is working towards that. But the heat can regulate and change a little bit the expression of your fruit. And in 2015 it was fairly warm vintage. So part of the challenge was, as Philip said, kind of manage tannins, right? It's because alcohol, tannins are dissolved into alcohol. They are extracted into alcohol. So when you have fairly warmer year, you got to manage these tannins. And again, think about these tannins as the skeleton of the wine. And so over the years, when I came back to Napa to live in 2001 and to stay here, I read an article that dramatically changed my life. And that said 95% of wine in the U.S. is consumed within 48 hours of their purchase. And I said, okay, even though I only drink nothing but old wines for my personal consumption, I don't have a 401k, but I have a massive wine cellar. So I put every dime that I have into 10,000 bottles in my wine cellar. Some of all of your beautiful producers that are here on with us tonight, obviously, because you don't want to drink what you make. You don't want to read about
just remember, we got 3 more of them after you.
Exactly. So the one that we're tasting tonight, that cab, when I saw that article, I said, I have to accommodate, to widen the drinkability of the wine. And I started working a lot with barrel fermentation, popping the head of a 60-gallon barrel and fermenting the wine in that. And I started at Newton in 2001, before pretty much everybody else, I think, and did over 1,000 barrels last year in Napa for different clients and different people. So it is a system that does 2 things. It integrates wood, but it also helps with a phenomenon called polymerization, where the tannins bind to one another and give a little bit silkier, rounder mouthfeel. And so the wine is ultimately drinkable earlier, but can also age. At least that's what I hope. There you go. Ian, I'm a Swiss and I'm on time because, time is in my blood.
You are the man. Thank you so
pleasure.
much, John. That was awesome. Anyone want to ask Jean or say anything about his wine? Did anybody get any tasting notes they want to share here?
Yeah, I am indeed using my cellar as a 401k. And when you're in this industry, ladies and gentlemen, you have a really great thing. You can actually write off all of your wine purchase as education. So we're fairly lucky.
Fantastic.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to move into our number 5 winery. And Jean, thank you for your passion. Jennifer, you're going to be joining us now.
Yep, I'm here.
All right, Jennifer. See if you can match John.
No, keep John on the screen. He's
Ian, while she's setting up, there was one question about the alcohol percentage from Mark Reinheimer.
For Jean's wine?
Yes, he says, what alcohol percentage seems lower or just perfect in winemaking? That was
Mark. Thank you for
Reinheimer.
pointing that out. And Jen, not only is obviously much prettier than me, but I can promise you much smarter. We have worked on many different wines. She's an amazing winemaker. So I'll make it really short. Please get me started. And I'm going to put in the chat box my cell phone on any question about winemaking, or when you're in Napa and you want to have a glass of wine and shoot the crap, as we say, and talk about this. If you come to me and tell me, oh yeah, Napa wine don't age like Bordeaux, I will shoot you, not, but I will verbally shoot you. Why? Because one of the greatest wine of all time in Bordeaux is 1947 Cheval Blanc. It's 15 of alcohol and 3.9 of pH. If you want to go further, you go to 61 Latour, same thing. So we realized today that some of the great years of Bordeaux were actually from a year where they pick the grapes a little bit later and get these amazing balance that age. I personally don't agree with 17% of alcohol, but I also know that if you can feel alcohol in a wine, it's usually not that it has too much alcohol, just that it lacks density and concentration. Jen, you're the best. I love you a lot. The stage is yours.
And the answer to that question was 14-2.
Thank you.
Awesome. Jen, thank you very much for being here.
Well,
And we are excited to taste wine number 5, Oakville Ranch, Napa Valley, 2016. And I got the slideshow ready to go.
I'm gonna jump right in. First, I just have to say it's an incredible lineup. It's wonderful to be able to taste, 14 to 18 and be able to do a little bit. My bird's gonna be chatting while I'm talking. So.
Oh, that's cool. We love bird background. What type of bird?
Oh, she's a green cheek conure. She's
All right.
a little small parrot.
Yeah.
So Oakville Ranch Winery, I'm gonna say, why don't we look at the pretty, at the glamour shot.
Bam.
So while we sort of, I'm just going to introduce the wine. I know we're coming up against time, so I want to focus a little bit at first to talk about, we're tasting our 16 Cabernet, and then we're going to look a little bit about where exactly in the valley we are. But Oakville Ranch, we make a total of about 750 cases of vintage between 5 different wines. The 16 Cab, we made about 410 cases, something like that. But it's all estate grown. We are certified organic, and essentially we sell off about 85% of our grapes. So we are primarily a wine grower before we are wine makers. And I feel super, super lucky that I get a chance to make wine from this property. I've been involved with Oakville Ranch since 1998, and it is an absolutely magical part of the valley. So I'm going to have you forward to the map so I can kind of give a perspective, because who we are is really about where we are. So looking at this is the Oakville Wine Growers map, so the sub-appellation that we're in, and our little orange Shazam on the right hand side kind of pinpoints where we are. So contextually within the Napa Valley, Oakville's really in the heart of the valley. So it's about a 9 square mile area, and it's, like Napa is bounded by these 2 mountain ranges, and we're on the eastern side in the Vaca, which is sort of the drier side essentially. And we have about 370 acres, and we have the highest altitude vineyard in the Oakville sub-AVA. And essentially when the AVA was created in 93, they decided that on the west side, it would go up to about 500 feet, but on the east side, it goes up to 1,006 feet. And that's to encapsulate Oakville Ranch essentially. And back then they sort of thought, oh, well, it's because the soils at Oakville Ranch are the same as down below because it's an upwelling. But the reality is now the logic and the thinking is, there was this mega slide. And so actually all of the soils that are down below came from Oakville Ranch. And so if we go to the next slide, you'll see what I'm talking about, because I love soil. So I'm going to show you a picture of our beautiful red soils. And, if we look at where we are, our closest neighbors are, Della Valle and Peter Michael just below us. And then to the east of us, you have Stagecoach, and then over the hill, we get to see, Chappellet and all of that. But, the reason that I want to show these soils is they are just spectacular. They're iron rich, decomposed volcanic bedrock soils. So these gigantic rocks that you see on the right-hand side basically got pulled out of the vineyard when we were planting. And you can see sort of the gray side is newly exposed rock, but the kind of red crusty bits around it are basically the decomposed soil that comprises our vineyard. And it's just one of the things I think, when you drive up on the east side of the valley, you can't go very far without seeing some of these gigantic core stones. And I'm going to have you move to the next slide, which you can see a pretty picture of our Vista Vineyard. So I can talk a little bit about our plantings. So this is the Vista Vineyard, and that's our little wishing well. So Bob Miner, who was one of the founding members of Oracle, purchased the property in 1989, and there was an existing vineyard there. And in addition to Cab and Cab Franc, we had Merlot up there. And I really appreciated Adam's discussion about Zinfandel and some of these heritage clones, because we had an established block of a field blend up there. And we also had a section of Chardonnay that we essentially have taken that little small block and sort of tucked it down into another small area. And we have several of our own heritage clones that we have been growing up there that were there originally, and we continued to bud over when we did our replant. And we started a replant in 2007 when we brought Phil Couturi on. So we sort of talk about ourselves as being a little bit kind of beyond organic. You know, building the soils and really nurturing the soils is what we really believe in, and we've got a ton of wildlife there, and it's just a really magical place. And I'm looking at time.
You're okay.
Okay, good.
No pressure here. We are appreciative of your passion, and we want you to be able to get your whole message out here. So
I appreciate that.
And when you mentioned Minor, is that part of the, I know there's a Minor family, is that part of his as well?
So the Minor family is Mary's nephew. So that was Bob's nephew, Dave. But there is a relationship there in that in 1998, we sold the winery that's down on the Silverado Trail to Dave. And the primary reason being that we wanted to focus on growing the grapes and not running a winery.
Gotcha.
And so, you know, we no longer sell fruit to Minor family, primarily just so that we can have a really sort of clean delineation between what's Oakville Ranch and what is Minor.
Okay. Yeah. This is great. Exceptional. Really enjoying it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's sometimes it's easy to, you know, to forget about the wine when I'm looking at these beautiful pictures, because this particular place is one of my favorite places at the ranch, which, you know, isn't a vineyard, but it's to me it speaks to the sort of the serenity and the calm that we have there, and sort of this dedication to beauty and to sort of harnessing the energy that we have there. But if we want to talk a little bit about this wine, I really appreciated what John talked about with respect to alcohol, because I feel like absolutely when you have a wine that can hold the alcohol and you're not sensing it, you know, nothing should be sticking out in the wine. It should be a seamless experience. And for me in the 16, we talk a little bit about the vintage in general. You know, we were kind of emerging from the last drought. And so, you know, we still had some restraint within the vine because they'd been used to being a little bit starved for water. And so we had pretty moderate yields. Oh, yeah. And then we also had a very even sort of easy does it kind of harvest. So we didn't really have any panics about frost, and, you know, we didn't have massive heat spikes. We just had sort of an easy as she goes sort of vintage. And I think it reflects in the wine. There's a generosity and a lusciousness and a real depth of character there. And for me, there's sort of this almost a stickiness in the mid palate that I find really, really attractive and very pretty. So right there, yeah, we're looking at the lineup of the wines. So the 5 different wines that we make. The Chardonnay and the field blend we're the only ones who get Chardonnay and our field blend off of the property. This Cabernet, the 16, is about 88% Cab and 12% Cab Franc. So even though we make a very small amount of wine, I sort of cherry pick several of the different little blocks that we have. And I have 2 different Franc blocks that I work with and about 6 different Cab blocks that I work with. You know, for me, being able to build across the voice of the vineyard is really important. But the fact that, you know, vintage after vintage, and when we taste the wines from the folks that we sell wine to, which are people that you definitely know who they are, it's wonderful to taste the strength and the personality of this place that really comes through for me in this wine. And, you know, noticing some of those notes of the chaparral that's around us, that sort of sappy kind of freshness that's really balanced with this very lovely ripe fruit, but not candied fruit. It's absolutely one of my most favorite places to make wine from. If we go back, I wanted to talk a little bit about.
Yeah. So which slide would you like?
Why don't we go? So I'll just talk a little bit about the conservatory, and so we have this. So the reason for me that I like to show this picture, especially right now, you know, I mean, I'm so excited to see how many people are here, and I'm most excited because I've really missed having people up at the property. I've really missed being able to taste with folks and to kind of look, through this little looking glass and see people enjoying wine at home it makes my heart so happy. But to kind of bring a little bit visually of what it is to be at Oakville Ranch. And for me, these images, these places, there's this gorgeous, fully restored 1937 Lord Burnham Conservatory that's modeled after the conservatory down at San Francisco, that's filled with beautiful orchids. And, today I'm super happy because it's been raining and you can go inside and it's just absolutely lovely. And you have this sort of tropical environment. And for me, it speaks about one of the things that I see about Oakville Ranch is Mary loves beauty and she loves art. And for us, growing grapes is providing that raw material for other people to make art. And that's another reason why, instead of keeping it all for ourselves and making it all, being able to sell it gives us the opportunity to see different expressions from the same place. And it's absolutely spectacular. So this picture, I'm gonna show you just because we do have an auction lot, and it's 2 magnums. One is the 2012 cab and 2013 cab. And along with that, you get a super fun private tour on our ATV. The gal driving is our GM, Sheila Gentry, who is fantastic. And she's been up there since for about the last 8 years. But she and I will take you out on the ATV, and depending on how warm and sunny it is, we'll either sit out by the pool and taste, or taste under our beautiful bougainvillea arbor. And we really, appreciate the ability to donate an auction lot in support of, the Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. And I really appreciate the fact that I'm going to get to see, hopefully, some lucky foursome of folks. And
I'm going to tell you right now, they're going to have to get through me.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. Maybe Ian can tag along just because he's fun to be around.
Yeah, no, I Sheila's been so awesome to us, and I just totally dig your wine. I always have. So really, really fantastic stuff. And I just want to make sure, in closing, is there anything else that you want to say? Because we are up against that time threshold.
I think in closing, I really just want to say, looking at the lineup of folks that we have and really seeing that we're dealing with, small, family owned, fun people owned, properties that are really producing some absolutely gorgeous wines. It's an honor to be in a lineup with these guys. And thank you so much for sending me the tasting kit, because this has been a real blast.
Awesome. Yeah, well, we'll continue. And, while it might take a little time to get through this tasting, I want to just say it to wineries 5, 6, and 7. People are just starting to relax. We all worked hard today. We want to enjoy this in the process, and we're only 1 glass in. So we really appreciate you guys being at the kind of the optimal moment of the tasting. So
I did want to jump in and say one quick thing. Someone asked a question about blending earlier on, I think for Ashley, but it was about does 1 or 2% make a difference? And what I would invite people to do is, you've got some wines laying around, go to your cellar, grab a Malbec, grab a cab, put a 2% in, see what it does. I think you might be surprised, but I think a lot of it depends on what you're blending with,
Jennifer, I have a question. I was wondering what percentage of new oak was in your wine, this particular vintage.
This particular vintage, this is about 80% new. And some of that is just because we've got so few barrels, it's kind of hard to, you take one out or you put one in and suddenly you're up a little bit. But, this wine can really hold a fair amount of oak and stand up to it.
When you are blending, are you trying to kiss a little bit of reduction in the nose? Is that like a welcome ingredient there?
Yeah, I think that for me, I don't like to overwork a wine with respect to, being on like a prescribed routine of racking. For me, I like some of that sort of citrus oil kind of character and some of the depth that you get in the nose. But I think that a lot of those sort of dark fruit characters are also inherent in what we get from the property.
Well, it's gorgeous stuff. So
yeah. Hey, for the record, I just wanted to say that I'm much more fun than Ian is, by the way.
My brother, by the way. We're moving on. All right. Well, Mike, you got to go up and visit that winery, and Mike, by the way, is up there as much as me, so he'll take advantage of you. Be careful. All right.
That's not accurate.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We're going to move into wine number 6, Judd's Hill, Napa Valley, 2014. And we're going to be tasting that with Eric Lyman.
Actually, it's me, Judd. I'll be tasting.
Holy smokes! Yeah. We're going to have Judd himself.
That's okay. Eric's great. He's our winemaker, and he's a fabulous guy. And I'm sorry he's not here, and you're stuck with me. But
wow, that's really cool, man. That you did that. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. I thank
that's
you.
That's what it says in our program, you know.
All right.
Ian, thank you for having me, and everybody for being here. This is I love this format. I kind of sometimes get stuck in my own little Judd's Hill bubble, and like Jean was saying, it's great to be drinking other people's wines, and I have so enjoyed this lineup. It's cold and raining and hailing in Napa Valley, so I've taken refuge in this tropical cocktail lounge where it's a little more protected and warm. I'll get to the wine in a sec, but yeah, I love that story of your connection of to Phelps getting you into the wine biz. I often talk about how like a certain moment or context, means everything, and it seems like that moment and the context of it led you down this pretty successful path for you in the world of wine, which is very cool.
Rabbit hole, but I appreciate it if it looks successful, but it's pure passion. But I really do love it, and I wouldn't do it. I told people I'd do this for free if I could. So
well, it shows. And Jennifer, I love that you use that descriptor, sappy freshness, because that's exactly how the winery describes me and all of our PR. So we have a simpatico there, and we also celebrate wine as art. That's a notion that we hold dear at Judd's Hill. Which we can talk about another time. And Jean, back to you, we're definitely on the same wavelength, thinking about wine as a means for human interaction. And that's something I could go on and on about. And actually, that's pretty much what we're gonna, after I describe the wine to you, that's pretty much the photos you're gonna see are about humans. But we'll get to that. Right now, we're enjoying a little of our Kairos Cabernet. Kairos is the name of the vineyard that butts up against our winery, and I don't have a photo of the winery, so I'll just tell you where we are. We're on Silverado Trail. If you're in the town of Napa and you start heading north on Silverado Trail, it's the first winery you get to. And the Kairos Vineyard, we'll get to that photo. The Kairos Vineyard butts up against us on the east side, and actually, I'm told in Greek, Kairos does mean like the has to do with the perfect moment. So it seems appropriate. It's 100% organically grown Cabernet Sauvignon, which is unusual for the wines that we make. We often do blend. My father was fond of saying that complexity is not an accident. You work at it through blending and kind of using that artist's palette along with the wines. This was the first year, 2014, that we used all wild yeast. We just let the bugs jump off the walls into the must. We call it the Finkel flora. It just that lives in the winery, or last name being Finkelstein. What else can I tell you? Gets about 2 to 3 punch downs per day to extract the color, the tannins, the flavors. We keep the hard press and the free runs separate and do the blend a little later. About 2 years in barrel with about 30% new French oak, and then mostly neutral oak, just to really preserve. And if you're not familiar, a barrel is kind of like a tea bag in the sense that the more you use it, the less flavor you get out of it. So we on purpose use quite a bit of neutral oak, really to preserve the characteristic of the grape, the varietal itself. But this has about 30% new French oak. 126 cases made of this particular wine. And other than that, I'd like the wine to speak for itself and just introduce you to who we are as a family winery and maybe make that human connection, which I think wine is so good at doing. So you got a little preview, and I'll if you want to start it off,
Great.
I'll tell you about it. You know, my family's been making wine about as long as I've been alive, and this they got me started down the road of wine appreciation at a very early age. This is maybe the first wine associated photo of me at I don't even know, 2 maybe years old, who knows. You can go to the next slide. For my family, it started as a hobby in the garage, and this is the garage, and there's my mother, who is still very much a part of the Judd's Hill business and family. But there she is, hand cranking a wine press in our garage, and that's little maybe 5-year-old me sometime in the mid 70s. Going on, I'll tell you that in 1979, my family got into the business for real, decided to make a big leap and built Whitehall Lane Winery, which is between Rutherford and St. Helena, for those of you that might not know. They built the winery and immediately put me to work. I'd be doing punch downs. I'd be cleaning tanks because I could fit into them. So that's what this photo is. I grew up in a barn behind Whitehall Lane, which you can still see behind there. No swimming pool, nothing fancy like that. So sometimes I'd even fill up to maybe the first hatch with some warm water and splash around just to pretend like I had a pool, but then clean the tanks. They even had me working the tasting bar, even though I'd have to stand on a case or 2 of wine to see over the bar. And folks would freak out a little bit having like a little kid, 8, 9 years old, describing the nuances of Pinot Noir to them, or Cabernet Sauvignon. But I loved it. It was a lot of fun. I liked, meeting people and connecting with them. In the late 80s, 1988, you can move on if you'd like. The family sold Whitehall Lane Winery, and in 1989, we had our first vintage as Judd's Hill. It was a way to start over smaller. We had my uncle and aunt, and they're part of the family in the business at Whitehall, and they got out of the wine business, and my folks started over with Judd's Hill in the hills east of St. Helena, looking across Lake Hennessy at Pritchard Hill, in fact. So not too far, just across the lake. So this photo here is on the hill. I believe this was probably taken in 1999, I think. That's my father there on the left, and me and the crew picking the 99 harvest. We moved though about, we built a new winery, which I realized I didn't put a photo of in, but you can find it on the website, juddshill.com. You can move to the next slide. So we built a new winery on Silverado Trail, where I mentioned, basically the south end, the first winery you'd come to if you're heading north from Napa. And it was the first time in many, many, many years that we had a tasting room and had visitors, because up on the hill, the original Judd's Hill, it was my parents' house. So if you wanted to visit, you had to call the number on the back of the label. In fact, my mom, who you can see right front and center now, wouldn't even let us be on winery maps. I mean, it was their house. They didn't want people just dropping in. But if you'd call up, and Bunny Finkelstein, that's my mom, if she liked the sound of your voice, she'd tell you how to find us, and you'd sit down at the house and we'd taste wine, and it was great. So we modeled, once we had this new winery with a tasting, we modeled it after that, where we sit down, we actually get to know the people enjoying our wines. We've made wonderful friends. Again, it's that human connection, which I absolutely love. We sit down and we get to know each other while we're enjoying some wine. So this photo was taken a few years back. This is the whole Judd's Hill crew, relatively small crew. We're celebrating the fact that we had become the #1 thing to do in Napa Valley on TripAdvisor, which was a really big honor, because we pride ourselves on the wine, but we really also value hospitality and memorable wine experiences, and either introducing people to wine or talking about wine at whatever level our guests happen to be, and that seemed to resonate with them. So hooray for us.
Is this your mom here? Is this your mom?
Yeah, right front and center. That's Bunny, who you saw in the previous slide, cranking the press. Well, there she is, and just saw her a little bit earlier today too. She says hi to everybody.
Awesome.
Come and see us. She'd love to meet you. So this is something I put in just because it makes me happy. Talking about those human connections, as we all know, it's been a challenging year, and we have not been able to host in the way that we normally would, and we even take our wine experiences on the road, including these wine cruises that we've done for the past several years. This one happened to be in Alaska, and it just makes me happy to see that we have done it, and that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that we can do it again. And I hope you guys even join us at some point. We're heading to Europe in 2022. Knock on wood, that'll happen. So maybe you can join us.
It's going to happen. Where are you going to go?
Oh, we're going on the Danube between Budapest and was it Vilhofen, Germany? Jean, you could probably say that better than I could, or someone else that. But north on the Danube.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And
get your Gruner Veltliner on.
Yes, I'm excited for that. Some of my favorite white wines come from that area, certainly the Rhine as well. Well, look at that. There is the Kairos Vineyard that you're enjoying. And oh, look, there's Travel Channel's Samantha Brown here at the winery to tape a segment for her show about our bottle blending day camp. There's that is the vineyard. And when I talked about connecting with people and giving it memorable experiences and introducing or giving folks experiences with wine that are at their level, we really try to do that from our we have our sit down seated tastings, among the vines. We have what's called our bottle blending day camp, which Samantha was here to do a little segment where you sit down and we pull wine out of barrels together, and we put together your favorite Bordeaux style blend and bottle it up. We have a wine and food in balance program, which has become really popular. We just want to make sure it's fun, it's accessible. You leave with some good memories, whether you're a local or visitor. That's really important. They have a positive experience with wine. It doesn't have to be technical, but it can be if you want it to be. We'll make sure that you just have a good time with it. And moving on, I'm trying to go quickly. I hope I'm making up a little time here for you. Being a family winery, I couldn't leave here without showing you the third generation of the Chancel family here, getting in on some grape stomping action. This is a couple of years ago. They're now, the one on the left is now 13, the one on the right 11. Tallulah and Ruby, my daughters, and not only wine enthusiasts. Who knows? They haven't really asked. I gave them each a little taste of wine when they were about the age I was when in that first photo, and they don't really ask for it anymore, but we're still really proud of them. They've become community activists with a group called Be Kind.
Do you have the picture right after this?
Oh yeah, with the purple feet, exactly.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, where they land and they're all messy, exactly. And they do us proud as community members, organizing. We can get into this another time, but they've got an organization they've started called Be Kind, and they organize acts of compassion, like warm coat drives, cooking for people who are, hungry, organizing birthday parties for homeless children. Just continuing the tradition of community involvement that we hold dearly in our family, and I think that just Napa Valley seems to hold dearly. I've never experienced a place that has more charitable events and community outreach than Napa Valley, and they're certainly right in there. So I guess I do want to move along. If you have any questions,
one of them was standing right behind you for a second, right?
Yeah, that was Ruby. She wanted to see what was going on. So that was little Ruby, who's getting bigger and bigger, and she's also a stand-up comic. So if you have any gigs for her, she works cruise ships, punk rock clubs, all kinds of stuff. She loves it.
And we'll have to do this a Zoom with her and you in the future, and get her to do a little stand-up.
I think she would absolutely love it. She'll work up a routine. We'll talk. I'd love to invite everybody to come see us. Visiting information, it's on our website, social media. Put distribute our wine. So if you like it, give me a call. I'll put my info in the chat. We'll send it your way. And I've really enjoyed this. This has been a lot of fun. I like this format, and I like the whole vibe that you've created here. This is good. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. I would love to have you smell and taste your wine and tell people what they're maybe smelling a little bit, because you're the only 14 that we're tasting tonight. And I'm actually surprised to find out it's a 14, because I opened this and poured these jars. I didn't look close enough to see it, and it's so fresh and so beautiful.
I mean, I almost hesitate though. I think wine should be an authentic experience to, the person enjoying it. And I think the power of suggestion is so strong. I learned that as a little tiny kid working the tasting bar. If I told, somebody who came in, maybe I'm 8 or 9 years old, and saying, this Riesling, you're going to smell bazooka bubblegum and marshmallows, and the person will go, oh wow, the kid's right. So almost anything I say, it's easily adaptable. I'd love to hear maybe what some of your comments are, as opposed to hearing what mine are.
Let's open it up to the audience, because they've been tasting some great wine tonight.
Yeah,
this is right there. Terry, Hector, any of you, Wendy, what are you picking up? Aaron, in your small little pour that you're sharing. Aaron, you live in Los Angeles, right?
No, I live in the Central Valley.
Yeah, damn it. All right, well, we'll make it up to you.
Okay, we'll figure it out. But dare I say, okay, you said bubblicious, I think is what you said, or bubblegum.
Yeah.
I literally did say that I smelled bubblegum.
Wow.
Sorry,
probably to a winemaker or a winery. I'm sorry, but that's what I smelled, and it's not a bad thing.
No, look, you're talking to a guy who will absolutely defend your opinion, even if it, look, whatever it is, there's no, let me rephrase. I was about to say something I was about to regret. I'll say there's no wrong answer. Let's put it that way. There's no wrong answer. It can be whatever it is to you. That's the right answer.
That was so diplomatic, Judd. That was
No, it really is lovely though.
Well, thank you.
Awesome.
I appreciate that.
And Julie Edwards was asking about visiting.
Oh, okay. Let me look at, sorry, I didn't look at the chat here. I should,
Well, you look at that chat and take a look, but wineries are able to take a couple of appointments now up there, right?
Yeah, we're open again. Napa County has entered the red tier, so we can have even indoor seating, but we're not. Our tasting room is very small, and it's modeled after my parents' former home / winery, where you'd sit at just a table with my folks or me, whoever was home, and taste wine. So it's a longer table now, but it's not a big tasting room. But we do have a very beautiful outdoor tasting terrace. So that photo with Samantha Brown, that's what you'd be looking at, the vineyard there. Actually, you'd see vineyard on 3 sides of you sitting outside. And unless it's, raining or hailing, most everyone wants to sit outside anyway. So we're not doing any indoor tastings, but we are open, and we'd love to see people.
I'm trying to figure out how to get past mom.
You know what? You don't have to anymore. We're just open.
You can talk underneath, I can butter her up. So.
I'm typing in our website, which has the visiting info, and then I'll type in even my email. So if you're coming, I want you to let me know personally and remind me that we met here.
Will do.
Can we come and meet mom? And can we invite Samantha Brown too?
we could reach out. You know, I haven't seen her since that day, but the episode's out there. You know what? You go on. I'm going to find it. It lives in YouTube. I'm going to find it and I'll put that in the chat as well, because that was kind of fun.
That's cool.
And there's a brief appearance in that episode of someone referred to my late father, and he appears in that episode. He had a great time doing that.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but we used to do events on Rodeo Drive, and I met you there at our event on Rodeo.
That was a long time ago.
That was like 15 years ago, about.
Yeah.
So maybe even longer. So I'm super happy to taste your wine tonight and see how beautiful it is, and I think it's just another great wine tonight. We are super blessed tonight to have so many amazing references, and what's cool is they're all a little bit different, but they're all awesome. And that's what's great about the lineup that you can almost count on when you talk about Napa Valley. And you guys just bring it. So thanks for the excellence. Really awesome. And I will encourage everybody to take Judd up on his hospitality request, because everyone that goes to that winery walks away a fan.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I just sent a link to our YouTube channel, and there's a playlist that says TV appearances, and that's where the Samantha Brown episode is.
All right, I'll be checking.
Hope you enjoy.
We're going to be sending you an email, so expect an email from me.
Oh yeah, please. I'll look forward to that. Thank you.
Awesome. Great job.
Thank you.
All right. I need to apologize for being a little bit late for Lisa. So let's make sure you're extra sharp for Lisa, because Lisa's last, but she's been hanging on the whole time. And not least, Lisa, we saved the best for last. Bring you on here. Let's spotlight Lisa. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
Hi there.
Last but not least, number 7. So excited to be here. It's been fun watching all the other vintners and tasting their wines and hearing about their stories, and of course seeing all these faces here tasting wine together. It's just been really fun.
Awesome. Well, we were real excited to get you guys involved. You're a small producer of merit, and I'm really excited to taste your wine, and I'm going to get you into your slideshow, and you can take it at any pace you like here, okay?
So I'm going to start here with a little bit about my family history. And the Redmon family came to the Napa Valley in the early 70s, and we came for a very different reason than making wine. We came to make root beer. So my family moved here before Napa, in the early stages of Napa in the early 70s, and we bought the A&W restaurant in town that is right on Highway 29. So if you've been up here and you've driven through St. Helena on Highway 29, you've passed right by it. We, as a family, my dad and my brothers and I ran that restaurant for 35 years. And we all worked our part and did our part in the restaurant. And my dad's job was to work the lunch hour every day. And in a small town like St. Helena, customers came in and got to know him and got to know that he liked to purchase real estate in the Napa Valley. So someone would come in and say, listen, Tom, why don't you come down? I've got this house for sale, or whatever it was. He'd go down and he'd take a look. And at one point, someone came in with a vineyard. And so he went out and took a look, and he bought a vineyard that is on the west side of the St. Helena bench in St. Helena. If you all know, Corazon Winery and Delectus were kind of tucked back there on the bench. Funny part of the story is nobody in my family drank wine, including my dad who purchased it. So this vineyard kind of sat for a while and nobody did a lot with it. There was a farmer that farmed it and sold the fruit to other vineyards, vintners, but he had no idea really what this vineyard was all about. So I came home from the San Francisco, college at USF, working in technology, showed back up in St. Helena, the town that I grew up with and went to high school in and knew very well. And I had an idea about making some home wine. So I took some of the grapes from my family vineyard, and I bought the equipment that you see right in this picture, which was basically a bucket and a home winemaking book and a bottling machine and all of the fun supplies that we needed to make some home wine in the garage, and gave that a shot. I bottled up, let's see, I think that was 200 bottles the first year, and I started to throw a few parties, and people started to come over and taste this wine, and everyone really liked it. And I got a recommendation to take it down to a home winemaking competition that they do every year at the county fair in Napa. So I brought my 2 bottles down one summer. It was a 1999, it was the vintage that I produced in my garage. And I submitted it and won the 2 best awards in that show, which were Best of Show and Best Cabernet.
Wow.
That was kind of the point in time where I thought, maybe I could do this commercially. Maybe I could make this a business. And so I produced that first year in 2001. Gave myself a couple of practice vintages, and then I took it down to Wine Enthusiast and had a real rating and got a 97 points on my first bottle that I had rated. So all of this was a good thing, and that's kind of what got me on my way, is this experience. I kind of fell into it. I didn't think, I have no formal education. I didn't think this was going to be what I did with my life, but here I am, and it's been real good for me. I've been producing wine for the past 20 years.
Amazing.
Next slide. So what was the vineyard? The vineyard that was purchased without really anybody knowing much, was 3.5 acres on the west side in St. Helena, and we're located right where the flatland meets the valley floor, or the mountains meet the valley floor. So the soil we get is just this beautiful, dry, rocky soil that comes down off the mountain, holds no moisture, allows these vines to really stress, mixed with this valley floor, very lush volcanic soil. The vines that were and are on the property are now 50 years old, and they're clone 6. So the way I like to describe a clone 6 cluster is sparse. I think about it like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree, sparse. So loose clusters, so you're going to get all of the wind and sun in between those clusters, really ripening those tiny little berries and producing something really special, grapes. The rootstock is St. George, and that is a rootstock that's resistant to phylloxera and the disease of the roots. Took out Napa Valley a couple of times, and so this is one of the reasons why the vines have gone on for 50 years. As far as yield goes, we get about 2 tons an acre off of this vineyard. And as these grapes get older, the quality just seems to get better and better. The tonnage, we lose a little bit of the yield or the tonnage. So now we don't ever really get much more than about 2 tons per acre. We continue to farm it in a way. We just turned it to cane pruning this year, so that we have new shoots that come off of every one of the vines, and kind of helped boost that yield a little bit. When we first bought the vineyard, the vines were dry farmed and head trained. So no water, left to Mother Nature, like we heard one of our earlier vintners say. What we spent our first years doing was pruning those vines so that they were built a trellis, pruned the vines, cut off about 1/3 of each vine and pruned it in a way so that they were now growing over the trellis. We put a little bit of water on the vineyard, so irrigation system that we use mostly at harvest if we're looking to slow things down a little bit with its hot weather. And then we interplanted the rows. So with those head trained vines, we had 10-foot rows, and we just put a row between so that there's 5-foot rows now, and then change the direction of the vineyard.
Wow.
All of that was kind of the first years preparing for. So the results were beautiful. This is a 2017 Cabernet that we're drinking. It's 100% Cabernet, single vineyard, right from those 50-year-old vines that my family purchased so many years ago. The old vines just produce something that I like to describe as just soft, silky tannins, a soft mouthfeel, a very velvety texture, just a beautiful, beautiful wine. On the nose, I get lots of ripe fruit, raspberry jam. The colors of kind of a crimson. I describe it a little between rose and red. And again, it just lots of concentrated.
A little silky and
vanilla characteristics. This is a wine that I think you don't have to have food. You can kind of open this up and drink it while you're cooking, with the meal, after the meal, into like something like a rich chocolate dessert. I've paired this with so many great things, braised dishes, short ribs, kind of tomato-based short ribs, a lamb chop with majorium and thyme, kind of brings out the earthiness, grilled pork tenderloin with some cherry chutney. All of those things have kind of been some of my favorites over the years to drink with the wine. So today, 20 years later, my brand, I produce 1,200 cases a year. I have a little farmhouse in the vineyard where people can come and visit. And then I have in May, a downtown Napa tasting room opening up that I'm going in with another couple of vintners. All the wines are sold direct to consumer. So they're sold through my website, or I put some phone numbers on here if you want to call us and talk about us to come see us, or how to get the wines. If you want to come and see my original bucket and my original book, it's all here in the farmhouse as part of the tour. So it's just been a really fun business, and I would love to see anyone that's interested in coming out.
You guys still own the AMW?
We own the building and the land, but my dad says it's a young man's game, running those restaurants. So no more.
Hey, that was one of my favorite places when I was a kid.
Root beer. Yeah. Sometimes when you come see me, I bring out a little frozen baby mug of root beer. So that's a
cool.
Really fun.
Well, any questions for Lisa? Any comments?
Good job, Lisa.
Thank you.
Fun stuff.
Fun stuff.
That was excellent. Thank you. Oh, absolutely. And we'll be looking to see you in April as well.
Cheers.
Beautiful.
Cheers. Thank you.
It's nice to be able to taste something that's so artisan and so unique, and I think you did a really beautiful job. The wine's so silky, so tender, and it's got a very light tannin structure, and really, really beautiful. I think a lot of people are going to love this wine tonight.
Super delicious, and I love those vanilla notes.
How are things going out there? Emily Little, are you doing all right? Where's your?
I'm doing great. My husband and I are also coming to Napa in about 2.5-3 weeks. So this is great preparation and good trip planning. Thank you for the timing of this, Ian.
Perfect. Well, I hope you'll take up all their generous offers to go and see them, and I'm sure they'd be really thrilled to see you again very, very soon.
Definitely taking notes.
All right. Cool. Brother Mike, any comments?
I'm sorry, I got somebody jabbering in my ear right now, Ian.
All right. Well, you guys have fun over there.
No, but I think all the wines were great. I mean, we really enjoyed, tasting all of them. There was a little bit, there were differences in every wine, but, hats off to everybody who presented, because you did a great job and we really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
It really was a spectacular night, Ian.
Thanks,
Spectacular.
Sir. Thank you. Well, I really appreciate all you guys coming out and supporting it. And to everyone, sorry we're pushing it. I think this is our record. We turned 2 hours on this tasting. But we set off with good intentions. We'll do a little better tomorrow night. But we really do thank you guys for being a part of tonight, and we hope that you guys will come and see us again. I want to let you know, if anybody wants to join us tomorrow, we have about 4 tasting kits left for tomorrow. And if you email me, I got a little special discount to make that thing appear. We've got deliveries going out. You do have to live in LA to get it to you in time, but we would love to have you come and revisit us tomorrow night. So send me an email and I'll get you a special code to get you a real special price for tomorrow night to get you back here, taste a cup with a couple more, 7 more producers actually, and a really awesome lineup. Next week is almost sold out. We are almost at capacity. And so we really appreciate all the support that you guys have given us. And we intend to keep bringing really wonderful groups together. I love the community type of thing that we're doing here and being able to interact with the winemakers and not just watch a screen like we're watching TV, but really have all of you guys be a part of it. And I hope you guys enjoy that too. And it's really fun. We filled 1,400 jars on Monday with wine, and we did another something like
crazy
700 something yesterday. So it's quite a bit of work, but the team actually, we kind of love it. We all get together and just kind of pound these things out and really enjoy seeing the progress and having them delivered to you guys properly and improperly. Sorry about that, Aaron. We'll get you set up next time.
Kudos to Alexandra too. She was great.
Alexandra, I don't know if she's still with us tonight, but she's like running for city office. She's getting her master's degree, and she also plans on all the wineries for our tasting. So she just stays like, I don't actually think she sleeps. She's probably hanging upside down right now from the ceiling.
This was fantastic.
Well, I appreciate you.
You're awesome, Alexandra. Thank you. And Alicia, thank you for all your hard work. Alicia did 995 of those jars by herself.
Yeah, great.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hands of steel, hands of steel. So
No, I love to taste with you all.
But really beautiful wines, everybody. And I hope that everyone will go on to our thank you email. I think Alex, did that already go out to everybody tonight?
It's literally going out as we speak, so it should appear in a minute in everybody's inbox.
Okay, so if you don't get that email tonight, make sure you check your spam filter, because we do send a lot of emails, so it could go there or to your promotional folder. But in there is all the offers from the wineries, and they do have some special offers for your consideration, as well as a reminder to check out the auction, because what I always tell you is if you bid early and get outbid, you still raised money. But a lot of these items go below cost. Is that right, Greg? Do we have any update? Do we want to thank anybody for already bidding? Is Lisa Test buying up the whole auction again?
Absolutely. Of course she is. She's got like bids on probably about 11 items right now.
I'm taking you down. I'm taking you down.
Lisa, American Express called me looking for you.
No, but we got a lot of great bidders. Lisa, Emily, Kelly, Norma, all winning bidders right now. I know, Ian, you said you wanted to get that Oakville. There is a heavy bidding war going on right now for that. And, this is our fifth auction that we're doing online. Just like Ian pivoted his events to online, we pivoted the auction online. So the first 4, we've been able to write a total check so far after the 4 events for about $12,000 to Children's Hospital. The last auction we did had over 68 bids on all the items. And right now, after the first night, we're quickly approaching $1,500 raised.
Cool. It's a good start.
It's a great start.
Yeah.
And like we say, there's a lot more than just wine. Kelly is actually bidding on a 30-minute Italian cooking class on Zoom. So there's some cool stuff there. Give it a look.
Very nice. Yeah. Cool. Well, there's some special things there, and come back in and look at it again. You'll get, when you sign up into the auction software, it's really pretty cool. It'll let you know if you get outbid. So
Yeah, I think it sends you a reminder if you're outbid, and then it's been pretty seamless. You know, the wineries are sending it straight to the winners, and you know, it's been great. It's been a great platform to be able to, you know, pivot pretty easily.
Well, thanks, Greg. And thank you. And thank the Napa Valley Vintners and all the producers for being, you know, just so on it. They're all in it to win it. They really want to make sure that you understand how special the Napa Valley is too. You know, it only produces 4% of the total wine in the state of California. A lot of people think that Napa Valley is super big and, you know, all this wine. It's really not. It's actually a pretty small and special spot. And the reason everybody knows about it is because the wines are so good that, you know, they do cost more because that land, who doesn't want to live in the Napa Valley? It's like, you know, the vineyards are built on amazing real estate, and they are quite valuable these days. And that cost of farming that land is also very, very high. So I think some of these wines tonight were just incredible, and incredible values in the wine world, because I don't think that Napa Valley is just making the best wine in California. I would argue that Napa Valley is making some of the best wine in the world. And in fact, the world is coming to make wine like the Napa Valley. And that's really a big change. It's really the tail wagging the dog in this world of wine. And so it's pretty exciting to see. And all the talent that we had on this Zoom tonight, all these famous winemakers, was super cool to be able to taste with them and to have them. We are way past their bedtime at this point. Most winemakers go to bed by 9. So Jennifer, thanks for sticking out with us. We appreciate it. And we will see everybody very, very soon. Check out Zoom into Wine. If you need any champagne, come to Merchant of Wine. We've got rosé and champagne stacked to the sky right now, and you're going to hear some pretty cool promotions coming up very, very soon. And we also have a lot of other cool events coming at you very, very soon. So thank you. Enjoy your night.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all. And thanks.
See you tomorrow.
Peace.
Email me if you want to join us tomorrow. Not too late.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
So fun.
Yay.
It's just your hand and it's my face.
He was like, yeah, we're going to end this now. 10.
Oh, wait. Are you
Still here. I'm still here.
Hey, you trickster. Okay, so fun. Thank you. Apparently, I'm the only one here.
All right. Bye now.